Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 9th day of May, 2023, Tuesday of the 5th week of Easter. It is the 31st day of the Easter season. Coming to you from a little bench that's on one of the sides of the courtyard here at the school, our school, the Franciscan school. It's a beautiful blue sky this morning, so I decided to kind of sit here and do this little reflection this morning. Acts of the Apostles continues. Paul basically runs afoul of some Jewish people who don't like what he's preaching, of course, and don't like what he's saying. And I guess that they beat him up and they think that they've left him for dead. And Paul's followers come to look for him, and they gather around the body, I guess, mourning the fact that they think he's dead, and they're probably going to go try to bury him. But luckily, Paul just jumps up and walks back into the city to continue his preaching. Again, a tenacity that Paul shows. Again, a miraculous, healing or resurrection or whatever it is, and doesn't really say that, but somehow Paul doesn't seem to have been beaten down as much as people would have thought, and his tenacity allows him to continue doing this great work of missionary activity and spreading the gospel and telling the world about who Christ is. Again, what Jesus says at the end of Matthew's gospel is to tell the world about me and to make sure that everybody knows, it's like what has changed and what has been transformed because I was among you and I walked among you. And so Paul continues to do that. And he goes to a bunch of cities in this passage today, and again, just lists all the cities primarily. But Paul also says in speaking in one of the cities, that we must undergo, sufferings, we must undergo some kinds of pains, at times for the faith. And it's not just physical bodily suffering that happens. It can also be the suffering that comes about because of disappointments, because of things that did not go as planned or not going the way that we think they should be going. And so sometimes whenever we look at our church buildings and we think that they are not as full as they should be, we have to ask ourselves, really, really ever as full as they should be? There are times and places in which they seem to be, but is that always constant? And basically, sometimes a full church building is just that, a full church building, and it doesn't really mean anything more. Knowing and realizing that all of this is prompted by the Spirit, is prompted by God, and not by our own industry, or not by our own intuitions, and not by our own work, or whatever it is. It's supposed to help us realize that even in those times in which we think, the church may be failing or faith may be failing, it is God who continues to persevere through it, and it asks us to follow him in persevering through it. That is a great hope. That is really the only hope that we can rely upon, that we must rely upon. Because if it is left to ourselves and left to our own defenses to try to further this kingdom and further this community of faith, we will fail, because we don't have it within us to achieve what it is that God asks. It is only God who achieves this, and we must take joy and comfort in knowing that God is the one who leads us in faith. In the gospel today, we continue John 14. It's the latter part of what we heard on Sunday, where Jesus talks about do not letting hearts be troubled. If he goes away to prepare a place, that he's going to come back and take us with him. He also, so he reiterates that, later on in this chapter, as we hear in today's gospel. But before he gets to that, he talks about offering peace, giving peace. My peace I leave you, my peace I give you. The thing that is said right after the Lord's Prayer at Mass, my peace I give you, my peace I leave you. And Jesus follows it up with saying, I don't give you peace the way the world gives peace. I don't give you peace the way you might expect peace to be given, which is, again, important for us to remember that, again, what God gives us, while it has the same words, it may have in some ways the same connotations as we use within ourselves, it is very different. There's always a different spin on what it is that God gives to us in the way of peace, love, and forgiveness. And in the area of peace, it is not basically taking away, again, everything that is hostile to us, because those things, exist because, again, they do serve in some ways a purpose to glorify God. But it is us knowing that even with all the hostility around us and all the pain that we experience, all the trials that we experience, that it is God who can lead us through this, that God does not give up on us. And whereas the world may be looking at us and saying, how bad and how wrong we are, God never says that. God warns and God cautions and things like that. But if God says that the world is bad and evil, then basically God has made a mistake, and that God in God's self may be bad or evil, because the creation finds itself in origin from God. And if God is good, then all is good. Knowing that kind of peace that only God can give, that makes us able to continue to move forward in life, is a great gift and a great acknowledgement of that gift. Again, that is, another out to the Easter season, knowing that God gives peace in the world in the way that the world cannot give peace, a peace that lasts, a peace that is firm, a peace that strengthens and nourishes us, a peace that allows us to recognize the wonder and beauty of who and what we are. A continued blessed Easter season, St. Francis and people of God, may the Lord give you his peace.